Well, yeah, and all you have to do is just remember that your true nature is consciousness. You are literally everything that exists. There's no separation. There's no need for need.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and Sifu Taoist Master San Qing, and we have the mastermind. I would have to say, from my own experience, looking at this material closely, probably one of the most articulate, accurate, and informative sources for all things twin flames related across the internet. And I mean, that's really our reference for information per se at all. I want to welcome Kurt to the podcast here today. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing real well. And yes, your insight into this understanding has definitely, your reputation, your insight and understanding from my perspective, looking at all material on this particular subject, you would be the most insightful and knowledgeable in relation to this particular phenomenon.
Yeah, and you want to know how I did it?
How'd you do it, my friend? Okay, I want to get down with the get down. I want to see how you've deciphered this scientific method.
Well, okay, so when you look at information about twin flames on the internet, everybody's got different advice to give you. Everybody. And some of it is similar, but it seems like, for the most part, whoever you ask about it, what do I do? What advice do you have to give me? Give me a prescription. You're going to get something different. There's a lot of confusion around that. However, what's interesting is everybody has the same description. Different prescription, same description. So no matter what somebody is telling you to do, everybody, and I mean everyone, bar none, says twin flames are the same soul. Okay. Side note, if we're all in agreement about what twin flames are, what's the problem? Like, why is everybody confused about what to do? Okay, so that's one thing. Now, if you like, understanding how your twin flame could be the same soul is really easy. And the starting point is consistent. Everybody says they are the same soul. Twin flames are the same soul. But how that works, the mechanics of that, like how is it that we are the same soul? If you were to ask that question, you're the same soul. Yes. Okay. We all agree. But how is that possible? How does that work? So even that question, you're going to run into a bunch of different answers. And I really just don't understand why, when we already know about this.
And who is the reference for that particular information? I would always tell people, you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. And everything is experiential. So it means that if you're having your experience and it's validated by you and it is true within this 3D reality, however high you go. I mean, that's how I validate someone's consciousness, is I show them something that they would conceptually wrap their mind around, but actually have it happen in this 3D reality. Then they go, oh, well, this is my first reference point. I cannot deny that. I cannot unsee what I have seen.
Right.
So what's the definition, or where is that information coming from?
Well, again, the scientific method is the best way that we have to wean fact from delusion. And
oh, I love it.
Here's
for the audience.
I guess you could say what?
Break it down for the audience, because that's
scientific method.
Yeah, because
sure. I mean, it's
flashing it on the screen doesn't give them a greater insight.
Totally.
So
how is it that twin flames are the same soul? And actually, my starting point was the push-pull between you and your twin flame. So do some background research. Well, I've been at this for 6 years. I've personally coached 7,000 twin flames, both in group settings and in one-on-one. So you could say in a clinical way. I've done clinical research, and I've had many hypotheses about why there is the push-pull. I've been trying to explain that for 6 years. We know that there is a push-pull between twin flames, the whole runner-chaser dynamic, right? But I don't know why. I've heard some other hypotheses. I've had my own. So test it out. I construct a hypothesis. Okay, here's why I think there is the push-pull. Test it out. Look at the results. And I've gone through, well, that doesn't match so many times. The hypothesis is false or partially true, which means your hypothesis is not matching reality. So back to the drawing board. Try again. Think of a new hypothesis until you get to this box. Your hypothesis is true. And here's where I landed. It's going to be so obvious when I tell you this. Okay. You know how, people, they can know who they used to be in a past life, right?
Right.
Then all you got to do is just hop on YouTube and type in reincarnation stories. And there's plenty of reincarnation stories where little kids, they start telling a story about how they are this person. And the mom and dad are like, no, you're not. You're a little kid. What are you talking about? Well, they go find records of whoever it is the little kid is talking about. And they're like, son of a gun. How could they have possibly known that? And there's lots of stories like that. And then, of course, people having near-death experiences. Obviously, you leave your body. And then when the doctors bring them back or something, they're talking about some conversation that happened down the hall. How did they know that, right? So we all know that stuff to be true. That's empirical observation. Okay. So there is reincarnation. Let's say you knew who you used to be.
I would just say, interject that, that's true now, today. When I started this stuff 30 years ago, insight into high levels of consciousness was conceptual until I showed them an out-of-body experience through an internal alchemy practice. These days, like, you can literally turn on the internet and you've got out-of-body, near-death, sleep paralysis.
It's everywhere.
It's an entry point, and clearly your insight and understanding of these mechanisms makes it so much more powerful.
Right. You know what I tell people? I tell them reincarnation doesn't prove twin flames. Twin flames proves reincarnation. Oh, here's how. Okay, so somehow you know who you used to be in a past life. So you had past life regression. Your parents told you about some shit you did when you were a kid, whatever. It's possible. It happens all the time. There's thousands and thousands of documented cases. Okay, so you've got that information. You know who you used to be in your past life, and you have a time machine. You go back, you meet that person who you used to be in your past life. Are you not both the same soul?
Right.
You're both the same soul. What does everybody say about twin flames? You're the same soul. Yeah, so your twin flame is your past life. Time is not linear, and that's conventional science. Albert Einstein is the one that came out with that over 100 years ago, and they've since proven it. Any of your viewers who've seen that movie Interstellar, the part where they're down on the watery planet, it's been a couple of hours, and then when they go back up to the mothership, it's been like 12 years on the mothership. The guy is aged 12 years. Yeah, that's really how time works. So reincarnation is a time machine. And this occurred to me one evening about 4 months ago. I said, yeah, man, I want to go back into the 1950s or something. I want to be like a hippie and go to Woodstock and shit. That sounds awesome. Wait a minute. Yeah, you could reincarnate into the past. Son of a bitch. That explains the push-pull with your twin flame. So everybody is well aware of the fact that when you reincarnate consciousness increases with each life lived. With every life lived, consciousness increases. So if you're twin flame, and it doesn't have to be that there's an age gap, you could be the same age. It's fine. These are just examples. But, this is you back here, and then you lived several lives, and then you reincarnated here. So you're twin flame. You're just watching a replay of stuff that you've already done in the first person. And it explains so much about this phenomenon, by the way. Anybody that knows a lot about twin flames, not the least of which includes the push-pull with you and your twin flame. And it's permanent. And this is the first thing I ever noticed about twin flames, is that there is this permanent energetic polarization. If you focus on your twin flame mentally, emotionally, or metaphysically, they're gone. Now, what I teach my students to do is to take your focus off the other person and go in here. Remember that you are a soul. The soul is consciousness. So it's basically Transcendentalism 101. It's like the introduction to spiritualism. That's really what it is. So the more advanced stuff like Hermetic philosophy and the kind of stuff that you and I could rap about all day, don't worry about that for right now. That's what I tell them. Just do the Eckhart Tolle thing of getting out of the mind and aligning with your soul, remembering that you are that greater presence. And when that happens, guess who wants to talk to my student all of a sudden? And it keeps working. It keeps working. So I've corroborated this polarization thousands of times, literally thousands of times. It's taken me a while to explain why it takes place, why there is a polarization. I know that there is a polarization, but I've gone through many different hypotheses trying to get there. And this is the one that finally stuck.
Right. I want to hear this.
Yeah. So I've had other hypotheses, like, for example, maybe it's the age gap. So my twin flame is 11 years younger than I am. So I'm older, I'm more advanced. Maybe that's why I'm positive and she's negative, right? So the runner is the negative polarity. It's just an energy system. It doesn't matter what naming conventions you use. You could call it positive, negative. You could call it anode, cathode, right? It's energy. So there's that push-pull. But if you're the person who's going through the awakening, the person chasing, you're the push. Your twin flame who is doing the running, they're rejecting you. They're not reciprocating their love, your love for them, right? That's the pull. You push, they pull. Okay. So why am I the push energy? Well, because I have more energy. It's simple. It's like basic physics. It's like chemistry even. Like, you've heard of diffusion. You spray a bunch of perfume in the middle of a room, and the universe likes equilibrium. It likes balance. So the scent spreads out around the room evenly. It's just basic laws of the universe, right? So I tried that out. Is that what it is? I started asking people. And after a while, it became clear that half of my students, there's an age gap, and half of them, there's not an age gap. And they all met their twin flame. You can tell they met this catalyst. You can tell it's their twin flame. If you put them through my program, again, you get them to take their mental focus off of their twin flame and instead focus in themselves, right? If you know what I mean by that. And their twin flame comes back, plus all the other obvious signs that they met another incarnation of their soul. And there's no age gap half the time. So that's not it. So back to the drawing board. Again, the scientific method. You test it out. It doesn't work. You go back to the drawing board. Well, now, ever since this new theory, which actually my theory that your twin flame is one of your previous incarnations, what's nice about it is it actually completes my existing theories about twin flames, about what they really are. So, that your twin flame is another incarnation of your soul. You are simultaneous incarnations of the same soul. Well, yeah, duh. I mean, everybody kind of knows that. We're all the same. We're the same soul, right? But that was an incomplete theory. So this completes the theory. And it explains the push-pull perfectly. And it also explains why there's like similarities between twin flame pairs. People, they always report to me that there are like deeply embedded value systems that they often will share. There appear to be there's karma at play too. Like my student, if say their twin flame is a narcissist or something. Well, the student was born to narcissistic parents. Interesting. You know how karma works, right? And of course, karma, what I always tell people is you can dissolve it in this life. You can. Again, just ask Buddha, Yogananda, Eckhart Tolle. You can work it out in this lifetime. You can.
You can come and see me, because there's an interesting overlay. Because if you want to, if you really want the rippling effects of understanding how this is all taking place, if you have a question in your mind, I'm not sure whether you are fully aware that you're teaching people how to just manifest at a higher frequency more consistently. But I mean, when you understand to be in the present moment, all things that you can imagine in what you perceive as your mind can be realized instantaneously. So the understanding of this in of itself, and it's repeatable only when you materialize something within this 3D reality that can validate that it is true to you. And this is where, Kurt is talking about, hypotheses, and then working out a system that can be repeatable, that he can validate with himself through experience within his clients, the people he teaches, that this is actually taking place. Now, I would go as far as to say that, manifestation in of itself, magic, healing, these are the three categories that I sort of pretty much construct my reality in and teach other people how to sort of interplay that. And magic, when I define it as magic, it's really a more defined level of manifestation. So I want this to happen at 12:42 a.m. with this person on that day, with this energy, blah, blah, blah. It's a very highly detailed, constructed manifestation. And those type of levels of consciousness come from a validation and an awareness to really know your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. And so Kurt is sort of like sinking into this energy. The polarization is just fundamentally the trappings of duality in of itself.
Right.
And
again, like I said, that was the first thing that tipped me off 6 years ago when I was going through the running and chasing with my twin flame. I noticed that right away. And I think I was set up for this role that I'm playing here on planet Earth. If you look at everything that I've done in my life, spiritualism has been a part of my life forever. I had my first out-of-body experience when I was about 4, and I was visited by angels, physical apparitions that revealed themselves to me. They left me a couple of feathers, and I had those feathers for a long time into adulthood. So I know I wasn't making it up, because you know how little kids make stuff up, right?
Well, they don't really. They're just they haven't been confirmed as not living in a psyop that what they are.
Right. Yeah, there's that too. Real. No, they do see real stuff all the time. But as far as like some kids, all kids, they play like imaginary games and stuff like that. But no, you're right. Like that's the thing is little kids do see stuff. Like they see ghosts all the time because they haven't been brainwashed yet by the system. I'm sorry, do you work with the brainwaves? Because really what happens is when I'm channeling or I'm actually creating magic, for example, i.e. example of exactly what you're teaching people, maybe you're doing it in a level that you don't realize you're
training someone at a high level of
Mhm.
manifestation. But here's how it works. I just used an example just 2 days ago. I was out with my family driving. I went 10 miles over the speed limit, right? So 10 miles, right? I'm just moving with the traffic. Not a big deal. Woo! Next minute,
Right.
boom. Police officer pulls me over. I call them bottom feeders, but anyway, that's just neither here nor there. That's my personality. I'm very clear on that. This is sort of like what's really important for people to understand is when you actually move the sum of your life experiences off the table and you can actually switch between that and what Kurt is talking about in relation to manifestation, that's a whole nother level because the humanist is the distraction. The humanist is the part where you
Mhm.
kind of get confused. And I mean, there are trappings of what you speak of within the twin flame model that is
100%.
very much a
Yep.
human sort of trait. But
Yep.
moreover, so he pulls me over and he, apprehensively walks towards the car. I see him in the windscreen. What I do for a living is, basically teach people all things sensory perception. So his thought forms are fear, anxiety, many things. Wind the
Right.
windows down. I'm like, okay, I'm sitting in the car with my children and my wife. Let me see. How does that look to you? Wind the window. I need to see who's in the car. Okay. And at that point, my personality had sort of had enough. So in the same moment, I was like, how can I help you? You were going over the speed limit. Really? Show me the radar. And my wife's like, really? Did you just say that? Did you really just say, show me the radar?
Uh-huh.
I'm like, yeah, I really need to see the radar. And moreover, I want to understand why you're so anxious and you are actually in your mind perceiving the idea that you want to draw a gun on my family and myself. That seems a
Mhm.
little strange to me. And his eyes just get like this big. And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay. And he goes, give me your license and registration. Okay, here's my license and registration. Now, in the same moment, most people would perceive it at face value. He's fed into his personality. You're going to get what's coming to you. You feed something, it grows on itself. If you're in that in sort of like um, inability, impatience, sort of like anger state, you're just going
Mhm.
to get more of that. That's what the universe will give you. And
Right.
so what's going on though is when you train in Qigong, which is one of the internal alchemies I teach people in, you're able to access all dimensions at once and operate there, like right now, like with my eyes
Mhm.
open. It's happening. So this takes place on face value. Oh, this guy's going to get his. He's going to get a ticket. He's been interacting with this guy. It's going to end
Yeah.
badly.
You're not
Under
talking to a being, you're talking to an entity.
And the underlining thing was I had already cast the magic on that. So this guy walks away with my license and registration, goes back, sits in his car, comes back after the confrontation, after all the things I'd incited the bull. He hands me my license and registration. Said, "Thank you, so I'm going to give you a warning. Now go about your
Uh-huh.
business."
Yeah.
Now, this is an understanding. People need to get a really grasp of that because this is what we call instant manifestation, which is all things, right? So
Mhm.
that level of magic is I'm not you might see on face value that I'm emerging with my emotions. Now that's not even there. That's a side
Right.
distraction for you. That's not what's going on in my
That's not who
operation.
you really are.
But the tangible and validation of that is the event. It's like that
Mhm.
guy was like,
Right.
"I'm giving you a ticket. I'm gonna give you a ticket.
Mhm.
You're giving me resistance. You're being rude. You're doing all these things." And then he comes back with, and by the way, his tonality changes like, "Thank you, sir. Have a nice day."
Right.
And so what people need to
It's
understand
like
is
that one scene from Star Wars where the elder guy, what's his name? I think it was the first Star Wars. Well, not the first one, the
Darth
episode 1
Sidious,
though.
Darth
Yeah,
Sidious.
and there's the 2 Praetorian guards there, and he goes, "You are going to let me go." And they go, "We're gonna let you go."
Well, you see, this is the thing that I want to bring the audience's attention to is I remind people of this. This is high levels of manifestation. When you're emotional, you're suggestible. So the second you're emotional, the outcome is up to the person that understands this on a greater deal of realization.
Mhm.
And some people are like, well, what does that mean? Is there a karmic thread? Well, there's a karmic thread that's related to your perception of your reality. And they're like,
Mhm.
well, what do you mean by that? It's like if you believe that you could walk under a ladder and you're going to have good luck, well, you're going to get good luck. But if you believe
Right.
that there's going to be bad luck from the outcome of you walking out of the ladder, then you're going to repeat more of the same. So the construct of this, and this is where we get to the twin flame aspect, because this is something that someone has validated as real within their simulation.
Yeah.
And that's why it becomes so potent. And the decoding of what Kurt is talking about is completely related to an understanding and a phenomenon where you're in that psyop of humanness. And so if you are in that and understand that, like the repelling aspect of energy, I mean, listen, I could show you some crazy stuff that would make your head explode when it comes to energy.
I'm sure.
Because we're all energy. I mean, that's really it. And sometimes I'll entertain myself, and I'll go out. I live in Nevada, so the Strip, Las Vegas, and I'll do what someone would call street magic, hypnosis, whatever. But when you can shift someone's consciousness in a fraction of a second, wipe their memory of their own name, their biological name, take their wallet and keys, hold it in front of their face, give them a reverse hallucination, and go, "Where are your wallet and keys?" Wake them up, and they're like, "Okay, when are we starting the hypnosis?"
Right.
Here it is. And their friends are videotaping this. Yeah. By the way, this is all consensual. Their friends are videotaping this. I'm holding their wallet and keys in their face. I'm like, "Are you missing your wallet and keys?" And they're like, "Yes. Where is it?" And they're looking through. This is a reverse hallucination. People need to get this.
That's what the system does too. Like the news media and the education establishment and all that kind of stuff. That's exactly how they do that. They put everybody in a trance. And I agree with what you're saying 1,000%. You can prove this stuff scientifically. Spiritualism and science are my two favorite things in the whole wide world. And that's good for those of us in the West because we like proof. Well, I got some good news for everybody. Yeah, you can prove everything that you're talking about right now. Everything he's talking about, you guys. You can actually prove it. This is real stuff.
Right. I mean, it's like I'll reference, you mentioned the black hole, right? So how interesting you use that as a just a passing comment or a topic per se. But I mean, when you look at the inner workings of what is the super glue that holds this premise, or what people are validating, but still peer-reviewed science to validate the quantum model that we speak of, is again still very much a hypothesis that's not 100% like validated.
And the theories are still in their infancy too, by the way.
Exactly.
But the things they're proving are mind-blowing.
The entanglement part, I got 30 years ago when I started training as a Taoist priest, because I was given the actual roadmap to one of the first rituals in relation to Taoism for internal alchemy is distance healing. So that's like a run at it, and it happens instantaneously, which then validates the whole premise behind the entanglement that we speak of. So that would then be relevant to zero point energy, which is the magnetic fluidity of the universe that gives you this understanding of quantum entanglement in of itself, right?
Yeah. Do you want to hear something really mind-blowing? And there's a pun in that question, by the way. There's this theory, and it's not terribly new. It's called information realism, and everybody in the science world, all the physicists, mathematicians, they all know it. This is where things are headed, and that's just the way it is. So what is information realism? It is saying that the universe is mind.
Well,
the universe is mental, and again, these are conventional physicists, and not just some no-name physicist either, but like multiple PhDs, the head of large university science departments. They've written hundreds of peer-reviewed research papers, and on, and all these accolades. Those are the guys saying, yeah, we think the universe is mind. Also, Hermes Trismegistus, what did he say?
I would say to that, though, Kurt, it doesn't mean much to me. I mean, you could have 5 PhDs behind your name. Show me. I'll show you. So you want me to develop my arm to a point where I create, basically anesthesia take a skewer, stick it through my forearm, pull it out in front of your very eyes, and leave no mark or blood, and have your mind contemplate what that actually means. And I'm sitting here smiling, having a conversation with you. It's an understanding of information entering and how you do it. But moreover, just a healing. Like healings for me are watching physical flesh alter before your very eyes. I'm used to it. I've seen thousands of them, and I'm not dismissing them, but it's a frequency. This is what everything comes from: vibration to frequency to your realization. So, you know, and I was getting to the 0 point energy because one of my students I've had for many years is got a PhD, and he actually had a project where he's studying the nucleus of a human cell. And for years, I teach these internal alchemy practices. If you want to understand Qigong, you want to get a handle on moving energy any way you want and altering your reality. That is nothing more profound than entering the internal alchemy practices. Now, one of the practices is opening up what we call the middle dantian, which would be called reference to the fourth chakra, other energy centers across all platforms. This has 81 chambers within a dantian practice, within a Taoist practice. Now, moreover, you're activating this. So what does that mean? It means that we're witnessing the death of a star, the rising of the red phoenix from the ashes, enveloping and opening up what we call black hole energy. And so this is thousands and thousands. And hey, we didn't have the internet 10,000 years ago within Taoism. And so this is understanding. And then I correlate it to someone who wants to have a little bit more excitement with the physics model of understanding a very new language that is literally nothing related to the language I work on, which is Mandarin, and that's seventh generation of what language started as a sort of pictogram 10,000 years ago. But let's just say we use physics. He comes out, Shifu, I can't believe this. I'm like, what's so exciting? Well, within the nucleus of a cell, you're not going to believe what I found. I'm like, please share with me. Black hole energy.
Right. Yeah, of course.
So I'm like, are you surprised? Because there's a knowing. It's just like when Kurt teaches people the understanding of the twin flames, he has a greater understanding of this sort of monopoly of duality, but it goes to a rippling effects of understanding what the soul means. They're, again, conceptual soul contracts. We have what we call soul retrieval, which is very much in line with the things that you speak of. But it's sort of like we start dismissing the noise of the human experience, because that could go on all day. You want to enjoy that? Listen, enjoy it. You're human for a reason, but realize you're an eternal immortal. And then all of a sudden, all bets are off. Your human experience is going to be one hell of a ride that's going to not be paralleled by anyone that you can imagine. Probably not more than less than the 1 percentile of anyone that's walking the face of this earth right now, because they understand it. There's deficiencies in certain ways where you get someone you look up to and go, oh, wow, I really admire this guy. They're so successful. They made money. They got the hot wife, the car, the whatever, but they're deficient in many other aspects. So when you get deeper, you want across the board homeostasis, so that you can truly manifest anything, not just something that you become obsessed with. And I feel like there's definitely a pull. I can see the pull within the twin flame model, where you could be virtually on the border of like, stalker type of stuff if you don't understand how that works. Because you come to an expert like Kurt, and it's like, I know it's them, but they're not confessing that their consciousness hasn't alluded them to or awoken them to the realization that this is a double blueprint of the same model, i.e. the same soul. So if they're not buying it, what have you got? You've got potential, issues. But on the other side of that coin, as he talks about, if you take your attention off it, all of a sudden they become magnetized to you. That's a level of manifestation, to be quite honest. If we want to go into layers,
it is. Oh yeah. Well, you're going beyond separateness.
Energy. Go ahead.
Is what you're doing. You're going beyond separateness, separation, which is the mental perception of reality
Mhm.
If you, and you know that's from the Zen teachings. There's no separation, right?
Well,
Now,
that's right back to the quantum model, right? But I
that
use
too,
that,
yeah.
but in reality, it is all things is consciousness, right? For
Everything
Taoism,
is consciousness.
yin and yang, two sides of the mountain.
Mhm.
You merge,
Exactly.
the Taoist journey is that realize that duality, and the more and
Mhm.
more you heighten your consciousness, your ascension, the two merge together and you become one
Right.
with all things. So it doesn't become conceptual. And this is a part that I want to stress to the audience. Kurt says there's a hypothesis, then there's a validation, then there's a realization. And this is what he does with his practices, how he teaches people. You go through this process to make it real to you. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean anything to anyone. It's just conceptual
I can
until
explain it till I'm blue in the face, but if people don't experience it, they're not gonna get it.
yeah.
They're never
Yep.
gonna get it. And,
Right.
science, you could say, as fascinating as it is superfluous, because everything that science is validating is stuff that people like you and I have been talking about for millennia.
Many lifetimes.
It's always
Many
been
life.
there.
And I mean the simplicity of it though is you make sense of a mental, really what someone would define from a psychology perspective, a mental
Mhm,
state, an emotional state. Now, when Kurt talks about mind, this is an understanding that mind is all things. It's really in definition consciousness, and it operates
mhm.
this what we could what I tell people is
Call it like a matrix of consciousness.
right, right. This is a tuning fork of your simulation. So
Mhm,
all things, even when I teach people how to exit the body, which is really going inside, the
mhm,
realization is you still have a register of this very experience. So if you're reaching out to other dimensions and you're experiencing that, it's all still on a tuning fork barometer of this experience. You're feeling and sensing all these things. That's why I define it as sensory perception. And people are like, well, this goes beyond the human idea of it. Yes, the model of if you come from biology, psychology, numerology, uh, neurology, you're very limited because that's
mhm.
just a snapshot. Consciousness is all things, and it's
It's
conceptual until
it's the
otherwise,
prime mover.
right? And it's all conceptual. So when Kurt references, hermetic principles, i.e., Hermes, which I've
Mhm.
channeled many times before, what a confused individual between that and him and Thoth. They're two very interesting energies that are very separate. They're not the same, but you'd have people sell the idea all day that these two guys are the same transmutation.
Yeah, I
But
don't think they are.
no, 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 no.
Yeah, they're not.
Thoth is some, in my personal opinion, from my experience in channeling his energy and communicating with him, I'm not a fan. I'm not really. And I mean, he's to my realization after the fact, he's actually one of the godfathers of a transmutation of hypnosis. So he
Awesome.
loves to put people in these states so he can access their body, mind, and spirit. These are his
Mhm.
words to effectively control all things, which sounds a little megalomaniac to me. But anyway, hey, look, that
Sounds
was
like
just
New
my
World Order
experience.
shit.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, this is the information that he was sharing with me when I channeled him about a month and a half ago, was the very understanding that he's part of the fabric of a potential new world order that is
Mm,
forthcoming within this new year. And I'm like, oh yes, exactly. That's my
I
that's
think of
my
those guys.
that's exactly what I said. But I was a little bit more diplomatic, my friend. But in
Yeah.
reality, this is huge. This is absolutely huge. And so what Kurt is talking about is an insight that he has to help decode the very experience that you're having. I mean, twin flames could be sort of it could be referenced as I've got to stress this, a mild experience of what we call a breaking within Taoism, a shift within spirituality, or maybe a mild version of what they would call a dark night of the soul. Now, I don't know
Well,
how
I don't
many.
know if it's mild. It's
Well, well,
actually
well.
it's full-blown awfulness.
When I reference that, I'm very, very aware of what a dark night of the soul is. Now, within Taoism, they always remind us that you can have up to 9 within one lifetime. I've only ever experienced one that lasted 5 days. And that means, so when you define dark night of the soul, I'm experiencing every thought, every feeling, every emotion at once, nonstop,
Uh-huh.
and it
Yep.
doesn't stop. It doesn't,
Right.
it just doesn't stop.
Yep.
Now, I would not parallel that to a twin flame. I would say that you're emotionally depressed or confused or anxious, but all those emotions at once, that's a little bit of a
And
stretch.
that's exactly what happens. That is
Interesting.
what
I've
happens. Because
never,
see,
I've
here's the thing. People have this impression that twin flames is a romantic connection.
no, it's not.
It is not. No, they do. They trigger ego death when they pull away. So after the initial breakup, they trigger ego death. And then you go through all of the usual forced spiritual awakening template stuff, up to and including Kundalini activation, intense intuition, et cetera, et cetera. It's a full blown spiritual awakening.
And,
It
with,
sucks at the beginning, but it's for your own good, you know?
well, with Kurt saying that, I would say that again, you're gravitating to an experience that is defined by your perception of reality. So again, you get navigated to this very experience. The unveiling
Oh, yeah.
of your emotional state, again, you know, if I have you sit in a room for 5 minutes, you will think a bunch of things that are clearly not part of the construct of what you perceive as your mind, because I'm just projecting thought forms that you generate and you believe they're yours. This is the thing where we always remind people, all thoughts of your mind are not yours. Well, whose are they? If I don't know, what am I?
Right.
And
Yeah, they
so
came from somebody else.
this application that Kurt speaks of, people need to understand that this is a simulation of your reality. You are gravitating to it. Know that if you ask for something, you get more of it. So the magnitude and intensity, the thing that blinded me when I first went through what they would call it dark night, we call it soul retrieval. To understand that is to just get all the humanness out of the way. You know, bye-bye. But it will only be that if you understand the mechanisms, or you will just sink it down to a place, person, or thing, and you'll keep repeating this type of stuff over and over and over and over and over. So that level of manifestation that Kurt teaches people to step past this unraveling is quite interesting, because the magnitude of all things at once, I have never come across anyone in my natural born life that has been able to hang in that state, and it's materialized by the validation of what they're able to perceive, create within their reality.
It's pretty terrible, man. I spent about 6 months doing that. The first 3 months were the worst, of course. And you cannot function. It was awful. And that's
well when he
something
says
I'll never
that,
forget.
you know, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's why I find it hard to believe that there's an echoing. Like the transformation from me realizing who I am in this incarnation, reincarnation, however you want to define it. The reality is I would literally look at a woman and, for example, start vomiting. Like, there was so much physiological things going on, not just mental. All these things were transforming. And that's why I always ask people, be careful what you wish for soul retrieval. And I tend to not go down that path when I can
Yeah,
see
I want
that
to awaken. Are you sure
well,
about that?
well, you can still do it, but you don't have to do it at the level that Kurt and I are
Yeah, all
speaking.
at once.
You know, if someone's having this experience and they end up on Kurt's doorstep, he is going to will be very merciful in your experience, rather than magnify it to a level of, you know, stage 5 clinger, you know, send you to the local psych ward for an evaluation, because that's how it would be perceived within a WebMD reality. Is, oh, I'm having a mental breakdown. I'm having an emotional breakdown. I'm having a psychotic episode. That's the realization. And that's the part where you help have people master what is really going on. So that attention to detail and being able to manifest is a really powerful thing, because once that happens, all things are off. Like, you can erase anything instantaneous. It doesn't have to be this psyop simulation that you repeat over and over again within your
Yeah,
natural life.
that is
Once you
true.
understand how to get there, when you
Mhm.
get there, and it'll be repeatable, you'll be able to show yourself and show others, this is the power of what I speak of, and I'll show you.
Yeah, one of my students said a couple weeks ago, "I've been gifted a blank slate."
Mhm.
Touche. And you realize we are living in illusion down to the molecules that you're
Mhm.
made out of not even being real. Physical reality can be manipulated. And of course, there's people manipulating it. And you even start to notice that. There's no escaping the truth. Let's put it this way: when you are brought into this kind of forced spiritual awakening experience, you're going to see the truth, whether you want to or not. You don't have any choice. But of course, it's very refreshing, because by the end of it, you're left feeling, I think, a lot more comfortable and safe
Mhm.
in the universe and in the world at large.
Mhm.
You just don't worry about things anymore. You realize that you're a creator of your whole entire reality, and nobody can harm you.
It's about repeating.
Anything that say what?
You need to be able to repeat it. I want to see this stuff. Like, when it comes to healings, this is the lowest form of manifestation, because it's just it's transmuted into a physical. If you want
Mhm,
to bypass all this proverbial BS, a
mhm.
spiritual realization is the fastest track to
Yes.
awaken and create this ability to access this state. And
Mhm.
so the now is the state that we speak of. And
That's right.
the universe doesn't have a moral compass. All this, and this is what I get back to. All of this stuff is conceptualized as a perception within the realm of man realization of what this is. You know,
Right.
I go back to my teacher Latsu, and he just did a prediction when I channeled him on my channel of what that means. What does 2024 mean? And he was really simple. It's like, if you're in your humanist concerned about whether you're going to be dead or alive, or there's going to be some epic event that's going to destroy the earth on some type of like human level, you are not even close to where you need to be in that realization, because you're
Right.
like asking, it's like you're a grain of sand asking the beach, what are we doing today?
Right.
The human, the earth, all these things, these are so irrelevant to the scope of the universe. But when you access the universe, you can be the puppet master to your reality. You can do anything
Mhm.
you want. You can play whatever game, chess, checkers, Monopoly, however you want to create it.
Mhm.
This is what Kurt was talking about. And I always tell people, you're the master keeper creator of your reality. And that, to a lot of authoritarians, freak out. And then I go one step further and go, your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. And they're like, oh shit, you're really telling people
Yeah,
this?
they
You're
don't want you to
empowering
be telling
someone.
that to people.
You're empowering someone to actually realize that everything is from within. Everything is
Mhm.
realized.
Oh, and
And
they know that.
well, maybe conceptually, what, the authoritarians or the people?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
At the
1000%.
very tippy top.
I
Yeah, they
mean,
know that. That's how and why they're doing what they're doing. They're just like Darth Vader.
but then
You
you
got
and
the
I are
Force.
popping up. But that's the
You
whole
can
point of you and I popping up in this reality,
yeah.
to help people find their way home.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, you got the Force, right? And you could be Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader. And they decided to be Darth Vader. The New World Order. That's what they're doing.
well, they're attempting, unfortunately, to be a spoiler alert for old people. none of the above is going to happen. If you're listening to brimstone and fire coming out of
Correct.
the sky, if you think the financial system is going to explode, you think all things are no, unfortunately, that's not happening. None
Right.
of it's happening. It stopped when they threw this energy. I wouldn't even define it as anything more. That the energy that transferred in 2016 altered everything as we know it. Now, all that rippling effect out into where we are today. I'm not a political guy. I couldn't really care less, but that energy altered someone's viewpoint of their reality. And so more and more, as you would say, the words were people waking up to,
Yeah,
there
the tyranny is winding down.
it
It's
is.
not really visible yet, but they're already failing. They're just kind of wash away with the tide, if you will.
Well, it's kind of like realizing that you realize that there's an apparition in front of you, a ghost, and the second you realize that, it disappears because most people get a glimpse. They get a glimpse of reality. They get a glimpse of some profound, like shift of consciousness, elevating them to a higher state of sensory perception, and then they want more of it. That's when they end up on my doorstep. They're like, "But I want more," or they chase the DMT, pre-production, external forces, ayahuasca, LSD, whatever it is. Now, I don't have a problem with any of those things. What it does is it ends with you on my doorstep because you can't replicate it without consuming it. And so when you understand how to replicate it within yourself, you can have a DMT experience that technically, if you paid some absorbent amount of money to experience that, would last maybe better part of everyone I've ever heard that's had one of those 20 minutes at best. Whereas I can show you a DMT experience from your own cultivation that can last days. You can actually alter your reality and make it be the new default of how you perceive things. And particularly, that's kind of like what happened to me over 30 years ago when I was going through specific internal alchemy practices, that clair senses, all these types of things they switched on. So my visual perception turned into like a computer screen of icons. So everywhere I look, I see auras. Everywhere I look, I see information. And if I focus my intention to it, it will be realized. What do I want to know? Just ask the question, it'll be handed to me. And so all that information is how I live my life right now. It's been going on for 30 years. So I don't even think twice about it. There is an actual, there's a psychological definition of what that is, where someone can see colors, see sounds, smell, light. There is I can't remember.
What was that called?
I had a person on my podcast the other day that was diagnosed with this state. That, let's be real, guys. The reality is it's a state of consciousness. When you switch this off, it's like
That's the thing, is they tell you that you're broken and you're psychologically damaged for being spiritual, right?
Yeah, no, it's you live it. I live it all day, every day, and you validate it when you're able to do it. And funnily enough, I'm starting to release a lot of modules where people can get on that, and they can do it. You want to read someone's aura in great detail, I'll give you the mechanisms to do that, and that's then very informative for you because you get past this sort of like divination tool that might come from numerology or tarot cards or astrology, where people sort of like manipulate the information way more depending upon how they're leaning a little bit to the left or the right, however they want to see it. Whereas within psychic abilities that you acquire through the internal alchemy I teach you, you will see the information and it'll blow your mind the first time, because you look at someone and you can see their aura and it tells you their mental emotional state, and then you reconfirm.
Oh, you know exactly what's going on.
And people freak out because I always say to people, look, do you want me to give you a psychic reading? They're like, yeah, sure, Mr. Magic Man. And then halfway through, they're like, oh, I made a very big mistake. I really didn't want this to be. So, you tend to get down to like, and I'm not emotionally attached to it. That's why it's so easy. This is one of the masteries that everyone needs to understand in the audience. If you're not emotionally attached, you can start exercising levels of consciousness and magic, manifestation, healing
Mm-hmm.
instantly. This is the psyop. This is a misdirection. This is the problem that people get in, and that's what's in their way. That's it. So when I feed this information out, and all of a sudden they're like, "How the do you know who I am? How do you know anything about me? You met me 3 seconds ago." Because it doesn't matter. I mean, I experience this all the time. People call me up, they need a healing. Grandma's in a coma. The doctors told them they're going to die, and I'm like, "Don't worry about it. It's quite clear that's not going to happen." Boom. Harry Potter magic ripples out into the what we would perceive as the universe, the quantum field, whatever it is. The next day, oh my goodness, it's a miracle! Grandma woke up from the coma, and
Right.
I've bared witness to this so many times that I can't even count on 100 hands. This exact example, because it alters the reality so quickly, and people are defiant. So Grandma 6 years later is still very healthy and happy, but should have died 6 years ago from a coma. And the medical community are telling you that's it. It's over. Just
Right.
And that's the placebo nocebo realization of how powerful you are with your own manifestation. Because if you put your faith in someone other than yourself, you're very limited. So I would say for someone that discovers Kurt and his inner workings and his mastery, realize that he's handing you the baton so you can go out and experience.
So you can go do it.
Exactly.
That's right. That's why I tell my students, you need to be your own guru.
Right.
You've got all the technology in here. You have everything you need. Elon Musk, he wants to augment with microchips and whatever humans. I don't trust the guy. My personal opinion, I think he's controlled opposition. But the thing is you don't need to do that stuff. You don't need that.
Well, we have more our soft technology is infinitely more advanced than anything you could create within a computer chip. And that's the part where people find it's like when they see the magic, manifestation, healing, and it's realized before their very eyes. And I always say, you know what, the only thing you need to start with this whole journey of? And they're like, what? Do you have an imagination?
Yep.
And they're like, whoa.
Right.
Because the fact you can go through the internet. I've got this system. I got that system. This is ancient. The reason that I always stress the Taoist stuff is we've had this handed down for thousands of years. And when you sit into the groove of a ritual or a practice that I give you, it materializes instantly in your reality because it's been imprinted by millions of people before you. Now, when someone gets a glimpse of something and they get the entry to a higher dimension, and they can't repeat it, is because they don't have the knowing of how they got there. And that insight of that next level of consciousness
that's the present moment.
That's it. And so when you get someone like Kurt, he's worked out this system that is repeatable for him and anyone that he works with. And it's evident by bearing fruit in their realization, their experience through his program. And that is really important. Moreover, once they obtain that access point, then they can go off and start creating things of their own at a higher level of awareness with this very technology that Kurt speaks of, the understanding of how he helps you find that truth. Because your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. Because unless you believe it, this happens all the time. I get it all the time. One person has cancer, the other person has cancer, and they tell me to my face, I'm going to beat it. Same words. Same intention, same emoting. And I'm like, and I could see one that is not, it's not going to hit, it's not going to get over the finish line. But what you need to understand also within the audience is I would never interject. I did this once 30 years ago where you do a reading on someone and they give someone their lifeline, their timeline. I made the mistake because it was really exciting. The first time I started doing this, I'm like, wow, they're telling me that you're going to die on this, and that was a mistake because people need to understand this. Your truth is everything. So if you invest in a perception and you validate it for yourself and you believe it, because no one else has to believe it, you have to believe it, then you can materialize that in your reality. Now, since then, I realized that anything can be altered at will, no matter what the framework is, past, present, or future. It can be altered. It's right now. Now, what happened was that person died to the second 2 months later, and I, just almost had a stroke. And I went to my teachers. At that point, I was already channeling high levels of of information, my teachers, i.e. I was like, why did you do that to me? What exactly was I supposed to? Is this learning thing that you're speaking of, that I need to realize that if I share this information, people will instantly attach themselves? And they're
Yeah.
like, yeah. And they're
Yeah.
like,
That's
yeah, yeah,
that's the
you need to
ego.
realize this. You need to
Right.
realize that you're going to get right down that thing and you're going to go down that path. So understand that the fast track with what Kurt's saying is he's worked out this system that validates the very experience you're having. Now realize that you can jump into the mechanisms that he uses through his hypotheses to realization to what he has been able to replicate, and that you can fast track yourself. And because all it takes
Mhm.
is you believing in what it is. So you've come across something that seems similar. You're gravitating with this thought, feeling, and emotion, which is the sum of all your experiences. And you're like, you come across Kurt. The universe brings you to Kurt, and you're like, I'm feeling all this stuff. I swear to God, you're reading my mind. All these things are happening. Now you take his foresight, his insight, his mastery, you use it to your experience, and then you step off and start creating things that are greater than what is this, you know,
Well, yeah, and all
perception.
you have to do is just remember that your true nature is consciousness.
Mm.
You are literally everything that exists.
All
There's
things.
no separation. There's no need for need.
What you're saying is beautiful, because I remind people of this. When you truly realize you are the universe is you, right? It comes in the form of being able to alter this 3D reality, and you see it
Mhm.
happen real time, because it's conceptual till otherwise notified, and it only becomes validated when you have a palpable experience. That's why I always come back to the system of internal alchemy within Taoism, because it's palpable. You can put your attention, move energy over here. This has a prescribed response. You move energy over here, it has a prescribed response. You're able to instantly manifest things. Either it's a physical healing, a manifestation,
Mhm.
magic, all of the above, but it's validated by you right there. And it's not just validated by you, it's validated by someone who's experiencing it,
It's your
witnessing
own
what
personal
you're doing,
experience. Yeah.
right? And so all
Mhm.
of a sudden, this is now all things. And so when people talk about, like, oh, it's the year of the dragon, because I've been teaching people feng shui for decades. I understand that feng shui in of itself, astrology, numerology, all these things, when you actually realize you are the universe, and it's an epiphany, it's like, oh, whoa, because it will be
Mhm.
shown to you. This is a sense that all of a sudden your every zodiac, your every constellation, your every star sign. So every
Mhm.
day is the perfect day for you. So when someone
Yeah.
asks you, how are you doing today? Well, it's good to be me, because, if you were to just sort of look at, I was born on this day, blah, 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 let me use numerology, realize that you can be all things. When you're all things, then the good luck only replicates more good luck as you perceive it within a duality. And as you ascend beyond that, the duality disperses, and everything is just what we call within Taoism Wu Wei, effortless action, the flow, or
Mhm.
more realized, the Wu Ji, which is between the breath in and the breath out. And that's the stillness. And when you get that, yeah, as I keep
Yeah, and you
reminding,
just have to place yourself in that flow state, in that state of surrender. It's kinda like you're a surfer on a surfboard. The waves are gonna do what they're gonna do, but if you go with it instead of against it, it's like you're able to control where the wave is going now,
it's even
somehow.
it's even more than that, because what happens is, from an internal alchemy practice, you separate electric from magnetic. You deep dive into the magnetic fluidity, which would be referenced moreover from a quantum model, the 0 point energy, which is a abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. When you access that, all of a sudden everything's realized. And so you literally are the magnet. So people are like,
Mhm.
guess what? If you want to manifest, you can think it and you can feel it, but if you don't act on it, it'll never happen.
Right,
Bullshit. I'm sorry.
right.
That's what Taoism is founded on, and it is repeatable. It has been for thousands of years. When you truly access that, we have an incantation from the Tao Te Ching that's very clear. Let the man that's never left his village, let him know he's seen the world, because that's what it takes. Once you access that consciousness, you are the magnet, and you
Mhm.
draw everything to you. Just click your fingers and poof,
Mhm.
holy moly, the bag of money, the hot girlfriend, the hot boyfriend,
Whatever you
the
want.
perfect
Yeah.
reality, whatever you want. And people are like,
Mhm.
that doesn't go with the laws of the universe fundamentals. Sorry,
Yeah, it
that
does.
is something that we
That's exactly what
created,
it's
right?
doing.
Because if you're abundant, then there is no deficiency. There never is.
Right.
There never will be. So when you go, oh, I need to be in a celibate sort of situation, and for me to abstain from sex will give me a realization of my higher consciousness. Sorry, that is a fallacy also, because when you cultivate those energies, when someone has a high level of consciousness from a sexual encounter, climax, i.e., whatever you want to call it, when you know how to transmute energy, I transmute the energy and drop it down into my lower dantian. I'm higher than you've ever seen before in your life. In that moment, it is an instant realization. And there's a cycle of things. This physicality is a ecosystem that works and functions perfectly. For you to suppress something is a delusion, because it's operating this way. This is how the physical body works. So allow it to. But if you know everything is energy and you're able to tap into that, if you have a release per se, that's how you want to call it from a man's perspective, you're drawing that energy back in. Forget about what you visibly see from a release from your physical body. That's not the energy. The energy is what we call compacted within what we call chi packing, and you
Mhm.
saturate the cell with that. So it never leaves you. And the first sign that you know you're doing that right is you will not be tired. So most men, when they
Mm.
have their moment of realization, they're all excited and they're, oh, I've hit my pinnacle, I've climaxed. And 9 times out of 10, you're tired, you want to go to sleep and have a rest because of the functionality of it, but it starts with the seat of your reality. When you master the internal alchemy, you're more energized than your girlfriend, your wife. And they're the ones that are really the definition of incubus or succubus, because they're eternal. They don't lose anything. They gain more. And so this is part of the alchemy aspect. And when you do that, you're like, whoo, let's do this again. Come on.
Mhm.
And people are like, Shifu, you taught me how to be like literally like I don't have to stop if I don't want to stop. That's right, because it all starts with, as Kurt reminds us, the mind as in consciousness, and you're coming from that. It's like
Mhm.
just embryonic breathing, primordial breathing that we teach within Taoism is understanding that you're breathing from consciousness. You're not breathing from the physicality. This is the distraction, and you're more than that. So you can tune this up and make this superhuman in all senses of the word. That would be the difference between Buddhism and Taoism. I don't know whether you've ever looked down the Buddhist route, but Buddhism is very much like a pile of dirt covered in diamonds. And so a Buddhist will go through their life taking another diamond off, looking for more dirt, more pain, more suffering, more whatever. I'm killing the karma. I'm doing whatever I need to do
Mhm.
to make sure I repent for a higher level of consciousness. Again, a perception of reality. I hate to break it to anyone. And so when they hear the Taoist model, they go, oh, maybe I'm a Taoist. I don't know. A Taoist is quite simple. Life is a pile of diamonds covered in dirt. We just tossed off a little bit
Yeah.
of dirt, another
You
diamond.
already are ultimate consciousness. All these religious belief systems that tell you that you have to achieve that, no, you don't. And that's the whole problem, because you're trying to get somewhere. There's nowhere for you to go. There's nothing for you to become. That's
Right,
the truth of you. That's who you really are.
right, right. And when that's realized, all bets are off. So I
Mhm.
love the gateway when the universe brings people like yourself and myself in the path of someone's journey and their own realization of consciousness, to give them tools to awaken that inner power, that ultimate access. And that's the part. It's like the matrix, the simulation, the video game is for you to realize you are not of this flesh and blood, and that is the distraction. Go and enjoy it for what it is, however you see it, but realize that when you access that consciousness at the highest level, it will replicate to make your human experience absolutely effortless, and you're just like, How is it? And that's where you come across the phenomenon that people go, granddad smoked 5 packs of cigarettes and a bottle of whiskey every day, and he was
Right.
110 when he died, because he discovered what we speak of. He realized, and he may not have been even conscious of it. It was just a state, the way
Right.
he perceived his reality. And so I tell people, you can eat,
Mm-hmm.
five smoothies a day, 8 pounds of kale. You can take all your vitamins. You can sleep 8 hours a night. You can do all your exercise. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're not handling your business, where the instant trait of someone being tortured by their internal realization, i.e.,
Mm-hmm.
mental emotional state, will be their neurotic behavior and their incessant need to control things. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's because internally there's a shit show going on, or moreover, it's called the psycho circus, I like to call it. What a great song from Kiss. Anyway, the psycho circus is happening, and the fastest way for them to get obtain some type of control is to be myopic and neurotic about these things. And that raises the spleen energy. And then of course, all the anxiety is just the soundtrack of their reality. And that can be regulated. And when I see that as the first thing, I always start going around the elements. So that's part of reading auras. You start with the spleen, then you go to the liver, the lungs, the kidneys, and the heart. And they're the ecosystem that you work with. Then it sprouts off into the energy centers that people might perceive as, within Hinduism, chakras. And, within a Taoist, you can access up to 108 energy centers between you and the universe, or universe as you know it. And you're superhuman. You're superhuman if you activate the first 9. Because most people's problems derive
They're not
from
using any of them.
yeah, right, and their problems are derived from just being distraught, and their emotions control them. I always tell you, emotions don't control you; you control your emotions. Oh
Right.
my goodness, what is going on here?
Yeah. How can you say that?
That's an epiphany right there.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
you get the insight and the entree to something greater, and this is what Kurt offers within his understanding of this complexity of what we call twin flames. And so, I always erase it in a different way, at a much faster rate, because it's a perception of reality if someone's in front of me. But I will tell you this, that how Kurt has come to this realization is a much deeper mastery of manifestation. So not that maybe you haven't used that as a selling point of your own system. Maybe it's something you might want to consider. Maybe you never thought about it before that way, but you're really teaching people how to instantly acquire a result that comes in the form of that manifestation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that's something that you cannot do. There is no try.
Right.
And
Yoda would say.
of course, the way that I explain it to people is, you just got to get the mind out of the way. The mental perception of self is what blocks you from all that stuff. Your true nature, the police officer you were telling me about. He doesn't even realize who he really is. He's just going through life completely unconscious, like a robot.
And it's easy to shift that. I mean, I'm confessing this, not that I could be arrested for it, but I do that quite often with police officers because they're so programmed. And if they approach the car, I always distract them before they know it. They don't know whether they're, and I just go, and thank you, officer. Have a nice day. And they're like, yes, you too, sir. And they'll walk off, and my wife will be like, I mean, she's not surprised. She's been around me for decades, but understanding that is how fast you shift your consciousness. And it's so easy for someone, and all it takes is the emotional state. And this is not something to sound diabolical. It's just it's reality as a human. You are literally a soul having an experience within this physical body. If you work out the game that it is, you can deprogram yourself and literally have the most divine, profound experience all day, every day, 24/7. But you need to understand the mechanisms that are being operated in. And there's a perceptionary level, and then there's just the outright understanding of how to shift between those mechanisms. And you use methods like Kurt's, like myself, my own methods. These are the ways that you access this consciousness. And that's it. I mean, it's as simple as that. When people start doing it, it's like, they're like, holy crap.
It's like a magic trick. Like, how am I able to do this?
Right. And I mean, I do this.
That's what I would say.
Not that I use this reference with my kids when it's story time for kids. At night, it's like, oh, daddy's got to do story time. So I sink into the first one, replicate their breathing. Then I'm in their auric field. And now they're repeating what I'm doing. And I link all the auric fields of all my kids. And before you know it, I just take a deep breath in and relax and good night. And then daddy goes back to Netflix. So, you have to understand that that's how fast you can alter that state. And so it's profound stuff. I mean,
do it every day.
Well, and you helping people, which I really find commendable, is that realization, that your groove that you were into, that you realize, hang on a second, is everyone just like, am I the only one that sees the emperor's new clothes? I mean, what's going on? I mean, this is because there's your perception of how you define this experience is, most of it within the internet is extremely fear-based, scary stuff. All this. I mean, you allude to the potential of, but then you give them an opportunity to find a whole outcome. And that's where most people are not doing that. They just feed off this fear. And that's an emotional state.
And they don't have to.
No, ever.
They don't have to.
No.
Well, sir, I got to run.
Yeah, look at you. Look. Oh man, I almost got you past 5 minutes. Look at you. You're like, I was like, I got excellent. Well, we went over a little bit.
This has been great.
Yeah. No, we'll have to do this again.
I agree.
Well, we can connect offline if you want, and we can have a chat about stuff. I'd love that.
Sure.
Because I appreciate mastery. I appreciate someone's expansion.
Me too.
And their ability to access.
You seem to do it well. Keep doing what you're doing, my friend.
And you too. And before you leave me, one question. What is your definition of consciousness?
Awareness that you are awareness.
Love it. And before you go, I'm going to put all your social media under this very podcast, but please share with the audience what is going on with Kurt today. What are you offering them? Program.
Oh, sure.
Whatever.
Yeah, you bet. So there's my Law of Attraction Self-Mastery program. That's for everybody. And then the Introduction to the Journey for Twin Flames, both on my website, newworldallstar.com, or you could just check out the free stuff. Just find me on YouTube, New World All-Star.
Right.
Check it out.
That's it. I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful to the Tao for bringing a new friend into my life. And we will explore this friendship in more detail in the future, my friend.
Touche.
With that, I am your humble servant and Sifu Taoist Master San Qing, and I will see you on the next one, guys.